so for the people who are watching, because you guys, well, a couple of you already know me and everything anyway. Yeah, so my name's Gavin Watson. Currently the chair of the Connecticut chapter of Conscious Capitalism, and author of this book, Altruistic Business, Why Conscious Businesses Have to Perform the Competition, and I got copies for anybody who wants them. And then we also had a family business. It was that we sold in 2019. When we sold it, we had about 330 employees, and we were doing about $100 million in sales. And basically it was bought by, we sold the business to a really large competitor that just wanted it very desperately. That worked out. We were, most of us, getting kind of older, and we're close to retirement, and didn't look like anybody in the next generation was really wanting to step up to the plate and do it, so it seemed like a good thing to do. But while we had the business, we did a lot of cool stuff. So that's some of what I want to talk about tonight, and go through some things. So I'd like to start off by just asking a question, and we can just write down as many things as people can come up with. So the question I have in mind is why do people go to work? So many reasons as you can think of why people go to work.
Money.
Yeah.
Health insurance.
Yes, money. Health insurance.
Some people actually like their job, which is a big benefit.
I would say growth as well.
Like personal growth?
I guess.
Or do you mean like growth, like that kind of growth, or
I
like?
would say both.
Okay.
Also both professional growth. Even if people,
Yeah, professional. Yeah.
even if people know what they want, they have to maybe feel like they have to take a certain job for. I would
Yeah.
say maybe you could say maybe some people would put it under like presumptuous circumstances. More
Okay.
than separate from being a team player, you may say, just so they can go into their own realm for long term. Some people would not do that too.
Yeah. So did I hear team player? So, like,
Well, it's like it's kind of like you're somewhat separate from the team.
Oh, okay.
So you're
Okay.
using it like let's
Yeah.
say-
Sometimes it's professional growth. You're just there to
Yeah.
do the thing, right? To further your career, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
learn new skills.
Yeah.
I think there's a big difference between if you're an employee or if you're the boss.
Yeah.
If you own the company, you're going to work for, I believe, a different reason.
Yeah. Could be. Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Well,
Hi.
How are you?
Welcome. Yeah, we just got started. So
Okay,
we just
sorry I'm late.
No,
No,
there
no.
is a book club happening apparently upstairs on the third floor.
Oh, okay.
Boardroom. That's where they sent me. I'm sorry.
Oh, no problem at all. No,
Yeah,
thanks.
my,
Thanks for
Just started with the question.
I was
why
laid
do
up on
people
the
go to
living, my
work?
mother didn't know where I was.
So if you have something you want to say, add that.
Oh, thank you.
Continue my tradition.
Yeah. So we were just, they're just answering the question I proposed to everybody is why do people go to work? So we're just getting as many answers to that question as we can. So
Okay.
and so far we've got money, health insurance, people liking the job, professional growth, personal growth, learning new skills.
How about make a contribution?
Yeah, making a difference.
Giving something to the world.
Yep.
That's a lost skill.
so that's not just volunteer work now? You could actually have a job doing that?
Yeah, you gotta
I'm
do
a
something. You
teacher.
have to have, yeah. come on.
I'd like to think that I am making a
You gotta make some
contribution.
sort of contribution.
Yeah.
You can't just extract
Yeah.
from the world, right?
Well,
I hope.
world's made up of givers and takers. Okay, I'm in sales, and guess what? Almost everybody I talk to is a taker. But I agree with what you're saying. It's tough.
Sure.
I think some people are lonely and they,
Yeah. For relationships.
yeah.
Social reasons.
Some people do work for social reasons.
That's why I play pickleball.
Yep.
That's good.
So, excuse me, so you have money, health insurance?
Yeah,
How about pensions if they
yeah,
still exist?
yeah, like 401k or pension
Yeah,
or
right.
something.
I think that's like a 201 and 25 cent K, it's not a 401 anymore.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
That's good.
cool.
Uh,
This is good, we can go with this, unless, yeah, yeah, it's
Okay,
good.
so, well, also,
Okay.
if you're,
Sure.
I always believe this has always been my philosophy, sometimes I'm a teacher, sometimes I'm a student.
Yes, yeah,
So you can have both roles.
yeah,
So you can be trained, or you can train other people, other coworkers.
yep, yep. And I think, and you said you were a teacher, right?
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, yeah, so teaching and learning, then that, obviously, that can happen.
Well, that's a good dynamic, all right.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, how about paid vacations?
Yeah, yeah.
Do I get a vacation after this is over?
That's good, yeah.
Yeah, self-satisfaction, and you have to be doing something that'll
Mm.
give you some kind of satisfaction. Makes you feel good about what you did, like a teacher.
Cool. Good. All right, well, that's really good. This is an excellent list. So I broke it down into 3 categories. And so this category over here, this is the avoid pain and suffering category. Because, a lot of philosophers and people over time have basically said, all human beings want 2 things. We all want to avoid pain and suffering, and we all want to find happiness. So this is the avoiding pain and suffering side of the spectrum over here. And this side over here is the finding happiness side. So there's a story, I'll just tell you the end bit of it, a story about the Dalai Lama, and he's on a trip with a bunch of Tibetan monks and a bunch of reporters, and he goes, they have a bit of an adventure in Mexico, but in the end they're sitting at a place in a ski lodge actually, and having a cup of hot chocolate and some cookies. And a young waitress comes over to clean up, and she says, so she waits and catches the Dalai Lama's eye, and she says, "Can I ask you a question?" And he says, "Certainly." And she says, "What's the meaning of life?" And the reporter said you could hear a pin drop at the table, because they'd been with him for like 4 days, and nobody had dare ask like the big question, and this young woman had just come right out and just said, what's the meaning of life? So he said the Dalai Lama looked at her like she was the only person in the world, and said the meaning of life is happiness. That's the easy answer. That's the easy part of the question. Hard question is, what makes happiness? A big house and a fancy car, or good friends and a kind and compassionate heart? So this is the big house, fancy car, vacation, bonus, that kind of thing here. These are all extrinsic rewards. And all of these things over here, these are the intrinsic rewards. And there's always, every time I do this, I've done this probably 50 times at least. We used to do this every time we had a new group of employees started their company. We, do the onboarding thing, and we'd talk to people for an hour and a half or so about various things, and we would do this exercise. And by far, this is always the longest list. And most HR departments are focusing on just these 2 things over here, right? So, you get this much vacation time, if you do blah, 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 you get a bonus. This is what the 401k plan looks like, well, all that kind of stuff, right? But what really motivates human beings is this part over here. So if you read the, study positive psychology, the field of positive psychology has been going on for about 20 years now, and what they've basically determined is that these are the things that give us sort of, lasting, sustained happiness comes from these things over here, and, it's like, money can't buy you happiness kind of thing, it's doing this stuff over here. So all of these so the practices like So the Dalai Lama and Archbishop Desmond Tutu and a guy named Douglas Abrams wrote a book called the Pillars of Joy, and there's 8 of them, and the first 2 are kind of complicated. So just the last 6 of them are humility, humor, compassion, generosity, and gratitude. And if you look at some of the books in the some of the research done by the field of positive psychology, you find essentially the same kinds of things. There's a researcher named Sonia Mirsky wrote a book called The Hour of Happiness. It's got basically the same kinds of stuff in her list. So it's these sort of things that sustain us and make us happy and provide for a good life. The other interesting thing to look at, and when you look at these things on this list and think about things like humility, humor, compassion, generosity, and gratitude, and those things that are in this category, is to ask the question, why do human beings have this response to these sorts of things? So from an evolutionary psychology point of view, why is this important for us? So it's clear that evolution would want us to do things that help us to avoid pain and suffering. That makes sense. Evolution would want us to do things where we get stuff that better food or whatever that would make us stronger and that sort of thing. But why would evolution reward us by giving us these intrinsic rewards, these feelings of happiness for doing things like teaching or making a difference or any of those kinds of things? And the reason why these things are evolutionarily important is because these are the things that are good for our groups. So as human beings, we are individuals, and we are so individually these things matter to us, but we're also group creatures, and these are the things that make our groups function well. So without teaching, without learning, without the desire to make a difference or anything like that, our groups aren't going to do well. So and we are essentially superorganism creatures. So just like bees and ants and those sort of things, it's not like if you study like an individual bee and watch it go fly out and come back with some nectar and do a little waggle dance and then go fly out again or whatever, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. But when you look at the whole hive, the whole thing makes sense. And so for humans, it's the same sort of thing. You've got to look at like all of us as a group and how we function, and that's where these sorts of things make sense. Because individually we can't, an individual human being can't raise a child, or couldn't raise a child 50,000 years ago wandering around the African plains all by themselves. It's just not going to happen. They're going to end up being somebody's dinner. But you put us all together as a group or as a tribe, and that works. So collectively, we have this drive that's built into us to do the things that are good for our group, so that we work well together. So this is a slide, just a regular old bell curve. It doesn't mean anything in particular. But you can imagine, like, if you had a company that was performing down here on this end of the bell curve, right? So it's not doing very well. Customers are upset. The investors are not happy. The employees are miserable. Nobody's having a good time, and they're all performing, very low down on this curve. So somebody gets the bright idea they should hire some consultants, and the consultants come in and teach them a bunch of standard business practices, how to do strategic planning and budgeting and performance reviews and all of these sorts of things. And they teach them all those standard things, and then what happens is the company will move from like here to up about, up under the middle of the curve over here, right? Because now they've learned these standard business practices, so now they're behaving like a standard business. And as long as they keep doing those things, they will not fall back down to this end of the curve, right? But the other thing that's missing that most people don't, the business world isn't paying attention to, is that there's another group of companies that's operating up here. And these practices that you're doing here in the middle that are keeping you from sliding down into this end of the business spectrum are also going to keep you from moving up to this end here. So you may be doing something like strategic planning or budgeting, but you're going to be doing it in a completely different way if you want to be operating up on this end of the spectrum. And this end, these are the businesses that are performing so well that customers never go anywhere else, never look for anything whenever they need something, they just go to that company and try to get it from them first. The employees are super engaged, they're really excited, they're motivated, and all of that. So, so these are and these things that these companies are doing will keep them up here and keep them from falling down to the other end of the spectrum. So what's happened in the standard business model is we've created a system system that's basically a mismatch for us human beings, for what we are actually like and what motivates us and drives us, right? So the system that we're operating on is not really compatible. And I think it's coming from this understanding of evolution, and it's sort of based on that. So this is the typical business thinking for a lot of companies, and they'll defend their what they're doing by the survival of the fittest sort of concept, right? So in the case of survival of the fittest, it's the strongest, fastest, smartest, best camouflage, whatever the characteristics are that are important to fill that ecological niche. The creature that best embodies those things is the creature that's supposed to win that competition, right? And then the business competition is supposed to be the most rational, value calculating, wholly self-interested business person that's supposed to win the business thing, right? And when you think about wholly rational, value calculating, fully self-interested people, that's pretty close to the sociopathic and narcissistic end of the personality spectrum. But those people are supposed to win. So this is the thing, so people would go like, oh yeah, so that's why nice people finish last, right? So nice people do finish last when they're in a group with a bunch of selfish actors. But if you get a group of nice or altruistic actors together, without the selfish actors in the group, that group will outperform the group with the selfish actors, right? So it's a different dynamic, because now what we're doing is, instead of operating this up here, these are operating at the level of the individual. It's in between individual competition, and the selfish actors will in fact take advantage of the altruistic people in the group. But here, this is a group level competition. So here at this level, we're competing between groups, and when you're competing between groups, the altruistic group will outcompete the selfish group. So it's a completely different thing. This is, I just paraphrased it to make it a little bit more colloquial or whatever, but this is the statement from David Sloan Wilson and E.O. Wilson in 2006, two evolutionary biologists that were basically studying creatures that live together in groups. And they said selfishness beats altruism within groups, altruistic groups beat selfish groups. All else is complementary. So they feel very strongly that this is a key factor in evolution. And when you look at human beings, the way that we all behave, we don't really behave like that Homo economicus, fully self-interested type creature most of the time. Most of us are very altruistic and naturally helping each other out. And as I was saying before, we're actually superorganisms where we need to band together to raise the next generation, right? So it's not, we can't do it by ourselves, we can't do it individually, we have to have the whole group, doing it together. And, not everybody is necessarily having kids, but the whole group together helps that whole, helps raise the next generation and go on. So just like, just like bees and ants and stuff, not every one of them is producing offspring, but the whole group is necessary to make the whole thing work. So if you imagine two human groups, wandering around the African plains, X or company Y, and just, do a comparison of them. So if you've got, tribe Y or company Y is an altruistic group. So the people in the group put the group's interests and other people's interests in the group ahead of their own interests, right? There's minimal hierarchy and maximum autonomy. So that's from a guy named Nicholas Christakis. He's a sociologist at Yale, and what he did was he studied shipwrecks. So he said, you can't, unfortunately, we can't just like take a group of people and throw them all on a deserted island and like observe them to see what happens, because the ethical review board would be like, no, you're not doing that, right? But shipwrecks happen over time, and if we look at shipwrecks, we can see what leads them to being, some of them, some cases, could be maybe 15, 20 people shipwrecked on an island, and 2 years later they're rescued and all of them survived. And on the other hand, you can have a similar sized group with similar resources shipwrecked in many cases in the groups that he studied, shipwrecked on the same island within a few years of each other, and the entire group dies out. And one of the key factors in that is the minimal hierarchy and maximum autonomy. So those groups that had real strong hierarchical structure to them performed very, very badly compared to the groups that had much more autonomy and sharing and so things like relationships, autonomy, minimal hierarchy, all led to the group performing much better. Yeah.
You're going to interrupt.
No, this is perfect. Go ahead.
Question. So with this narrative, minimal hierarchy, maximum autonomy,
Yeah.
is that kind of like where you have a leader that is not doing all the essentials, and you'll have, and maybe they're a little maybe cryptically envious that there's someone or a group of people that have the skills of going up to their level or maybe above, and as a result they try to
So in the hierarchical structure, you oftentimes, like in a shipwreck situation, you have like a captain or whatever, right? So if the captain survives and is part of the group that's shipwrecked, if that captain is extremely authoritarian and orders people about and everything, that group will not perform well. On the other hand, if that captain is more, more receptive of input from other people and more of a collaborative thing, then that group will perform much better. And so what really works well is when you have a fluid leadership system. So like if you look at tribal cultures, a lot of tribal cultures in the Congo, there are quite a few groups that have been, their cultures have essentially been around for about 30,000 years, and there's no hierarchical system at all. Everybody just does whatever the group needs that they're good at. So if today something's happening and you're the guy who knows, like we see, wildebeest, I'm just making this up, a bunch of wildebeest going by, and you are super good at tracking them and hunting them or whatever, then you might be in charge today. You might say, hey, I saw those wildebeest over there. I think I'm going to go over there and check it out. And a bunch of us would be like, yeah, we're going with you. Yeah, let's go do that. Other people would be busy doing other things. But it's more of a so leadership is fluid. And then tomorrow if there are no wildebeest, then you're following somebody else who's got something else is going on. Maybe we're fishing today or gathering something.
I even think psychologically with that hierarchy, either they're very protective and insecure that they're going to lose their spot, or they really deep down, even though they have a lot of talents, they really don't want to be there.
Yeah.
So obviously those.
Yeah, people who don't, yes, sometimes people are just positionally in charge of something, you know, it's just like, that's their, you know, position in the framework, in the organizational chart, and they're not really into it. That can definitely be a problem. But it works best when leadership is fluid, when, you know, it can move around to, because we're naturally like really good at self-organizing, self-directed sorts of stuff, so we have, you know, collectively, you know, we all just basically know each other only a little bit right now in this room, but if there was a problem or an issue, somebody who would naturally like step in, who like knows something about that, and then other people would like hear what they're suggesting and then say, oh yeah, that sounds good, and you know, it would in almost no time at all, we'd be like working collaboratively together on this thing and figuring it out. Yeah, where you get into trouble is where somebody, it's important for somebody to be the leader or be in charge and have that authority thing, and then that's what kind of like sucks the, you know, wind out of the whole thing and makes for a dysfunctional group. So, yeah. Somebody else want
It
to?
always has some, like, it's always gonna be that manager.
Yeah.
It's got, every organization's got one of those.
And a lot of those people, you know, I you know, give a similar talk to a bunch of younger people at, you know, in colleges, and I tell them all the time, I said, look, you know, you might be perfectly happy doing whatever you're doing, but there's an opportunity to manage something or become a supervisor or, you know, somehow move up in the organization, and even if it's not the sort of thing that you would normally want to do, you have to really, really think about it, because if somebody else who shouldn't be in charge ends up in charge, because you don't take the, you know, don't do it, then, you know, that's going to be really bad for everybody. So, yeah, lots of times the people who, you know, the people who want that prestige and that role and everything, they're thinking about it like all the time. The rest of us are like not thinking about it at all. So, you know, we're just happy that the group is working and everything's great and that kind of thing, and we're not like thinking about that sort of stuff. So, so that's a big reason why a lot of those people are, you know, in charge of things sometimes. Just wanted to say something about individuality. So there's a book called Blueprint by a guy named Robert Plomin, and he's basically studying our personalities and our DNA. And basically at this point says that basically that at conception he can predict, you know, whether you'll be an introvert or an extrovert or you know, any other personality trait that you can think of, which is kind of interesting because it means that like and he also says that the older you get, the more you become that person that you were you know, that you were predicted to be early on, because, you know, when we're young, we're fairly pliable and you know, our families and our social systems and things like that affect us, but the older we get, the more we become the, you know, the personality type that we're, you know, and we all kind of know that, like, we can't not be who we are, right? So it's baked into us. And what's really kind of cool about this from an evolutionary perspective is if you are operating at the level of, you know, so if evolution was all about, you know, survival of the fittest individual, then all the individuals in the group tend to look more and more like each other, right? Because they're all trying to fit this ideal niche, right? But if it's survival of the group, that's the thing, then having all of that diversity in the group, you know, it's so much more beneficial for the group, right? So having people who are different sizes and shapes and skills and abilities and personalities, you get your optimists, you get your pessimists, you know, I come up with some great idea and you go like, oh, time out, you know, this is, you know, if we do that, like the way you're saying, this is gonna, you know, this is what's gonna happen, because you're just, you know, you're looking at it, you know, differently, and so then we end up having a discussion and you know, we end up with a much better solution than we would otherwise. So it's really key to value people's individuality, learning and teaching, and a group like this is abundant, happens all the time. People just share, you know, the stuff that they know, and there's a strong sense of belonging and those things that make groups work really well, like the humility, humor, compassion, generosity, gratitude, friendships, things like that. So, and it's in, so kind of just flipping back a minute to the things that are intrinsically rewarding, like, some of these things down here. Can you imagine a human group actually surviving or doing well at all that's missing just one of these things in here? You just pull one of those things out and the group's going to pretty much fall apart. So that's how key all of this intrinsically rewarding, that intrinsic reward system is for us as human beings, that those things matter. So that was tribe Y, this is tribe X. So tribe X, they're all self-interested, they put their self-interest above the group's interest, they have a rigid hierarchical structure, they're all about maintaining that structure, people who are in charge want to stay in charge. There's not a lot of sharing of knowledge, because if I know something and I'm the only one that knows this thing, then that makes me really, really valuable to the group, right? So if I share that and all of a sudden a whole pile of people know that, now I'm less, less important, less valuable. So, it's that selfishness feeding altruism, within the group. Relationships are based on reciprocity in a group like this, and there's few and fragile, friendships. So when you have a group, obviously, if you had $100,000 to invest in, a company, and you had these two companies to choose from, and they're basically making, a similar product, which one would you bet on? Would you bet on this one, or would you bet on that one? For me, I would definitely bet on this one here. This one's going to totally, this one's going to blow the other one away like they're scamming and stuff. So yeah, so those are the kinds of things that are going to move the companies or the group. So this works for businesses or nonprofits or governmental groups. It doesn't really matter any kind of thing group. So I wanted to end with just sharing a few examples of things that we did in our company, so that to make it more concrete. And I won't go through all these, and just do a couple of them. So let's see. How about I just do one? I'll just do the open space meeting thing. So there was a point in time where my sister was a salesperson, and she was working with one of our biggest customers, and they decided they wanted a new product. And it would run on a particular type of equipment that we had. And they wanted a lot of it. They were all excited they were going to launch this new thing. They needed a whole bunch of the stuff from us as a raw material for their product. And she came to me and said, hey, I've got this is how much they want. And I was like, wow. Because, we were already pretty busy on those pieces of production equipment. And I'm like, I don't know if we can do it. And she's like, oh, why don't we do one of those open space meeting things? So we did that. We called it an open space meeting. And so what that is basically just say, hey, we have this opportunity. This is, what it is. Customer, ABC wants this, product. We don't really have a whole lot of capacity. Anybody's interested in talking about this, we're having a meeting on Wednesday, starting at, 8 o'clock in the morning at this offsite, location. So you basically just put that out there. And then people who are interested in talking about that show up. So, we put that out there to all 330 employees in the company, and about 30 people showed up at the meeting who were interested in talking about that and figuring it out. And then, so walk into the room, and in the middle of the room there's a table with some paper and some markers and stuff like that on it, and all the chairs are arranged in a circle around that. And anybody, so then we open the meeting, and basically I had my sister explain what the opportunity was, and then I said, okay, so this is how, remind everybody how this works. There's, a pile of paper and markers, and if you have an idea that, you know, related to how we can increase capacity, then you just write your name on a sheet of paper, real, you know, one sentence description of what the idea is that you have, and you basically stand it up there in the front and just say, hey, I'm Gavin, I have this idea that, you know, we could speed up the cleaning procedures by changing some things. And then I go and I put that up on the wall, on the side of the room, so that we've got a space here with different locations, different small meeting rooms, and then different times. And then, so I just go and I pick a spot and I stick it there. And anybody else who has an idea, you know, also, you know, just comes up, does the same thing, sticks it on the wall. And then what we do is we open the marketplace, and anybody can go and sign up to be in any one of those meetings that they want. So they just go and say, oh yeah, I want to be in that meeting where we organize, you know, all the parts and stuff like that, because it's a mess and I can't stand it and I love organizing things, so I'm gonna, you know, sign up for that one. And there's, you know, whatever, there's a whole bunch of different, you know, how we're changing cleaning procedure, how we get the batches to go into the machines, the whole entire thing. There's lots and lots of ideas. And then people just go ahead and do them. And what we do is, during those meetings, you have a whiteboard, you know, with sheets of paper, you know, essentially for each group, and each group just records on the whiteboard any decisions that they made, what they're going to do, what we're going to do differently, things that they've decided. And at the end of the day, we've got this whole bunch of these different things that people have decided to do. And so some of those things could just be figured out like right then and there in that thing, and then other things like the you know, reorganizing the parts room or something like that, that actually has to physically happen, you know, in the following, you know, few days. So we would take those sheets and we would stick them up outside the room where the, you know, where we were making that product, and people would just go and then maybe you know, maybe Eleanor and I you know, want to work on the cleaning procedure thing. So we just sign up, you know, it's like, yeah, we're working on this, and the QA manager also wants to be involved in that, so he puts his name on that too, and so we go work on that. When we get it finished and everybody's approved it, then we just write done on it, and so that everybody can see who's working on what, and how we're making progress and what's left to be done. And at the end of it, we actually got about 25% more capacity for running that product for that customer. And when you think about it, I didn't tell anybody to show up. I didn't create any agenda. Nobody, I didn't tell anybody about anything, you know, to do anything. And all we just said is like, look, we've got this opportunity. We don't know if we can do this. And the people who, you know, who were interested in that, self-selected, they came, they shared their ideas. Other people got together with them, you know, hashed the ideas out, came up with, you know, better options and things, came up with decisions, and then in the next week or week and a half, 2 weeks, people basically just knocked off all the stuff on the list, and the next thing you know, it was all done. So that's a really good example of a self-organizing, self-directed system, which, you know, basically very, very little organizing of it all. You just is have a space, set up a table, put, you know, chairs in a circle, and say, hey, we're having a meeting. And from there, it just flows. So one of the great things about that is there's so much autonomy built into it. And one of the key things for all of this intrinsic rewarding stuff to happen is a great deal of autonomy. So if I make, you know, if somebody likes teaching, for example, and I make them, you know, look, you need to teach this group of people. This is the curriculum, this is exactly the course, and this is how I want you to do it. Here's the test I want you to give them, and I do, you know, I tell you all this stuff, right? Now I'm eliminating all your autonomy, right? So you want to ideally look around, see what it is that the group's lacking in, what is it that we need to learn, put together this stuff on that, right? And then gather up the people and figure out how we're going to, you know, you're going to teach them all that stuff, and then figure out if there is a test, what that test would be, or any of that sort of stuff. But it's entirely up to you to figure that out. And when you do it, you know, if I mandate something, you know, a whole pile of stuff, it's not intrinsically very rewarding. I mean, you do like teaching, so yeah, it's somewhat rewarding, but it's a lot more rewarding if you can like put the whole thing together and figure it out, and, you know, look at each person's needs and interests and, tailor it to them and all that sort of stuff. Makes it a lot better and much more engaging, so, yeah.
You've got to imagine the folks in the other kind of company who might see waste or just decisions going on that aren't really benefiting the company and just shrug, like, I'm not going to say anything,
Yeah,
I'm not going to
yeah.
try to.
Yeah.
And so then there's this inherited kind of,
Yeah.
technical debt.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. We've got it, we had a really good culture going of just people stepping up to the plate, having good ideas, and just doing them. And people would, I would find out that they were having an open space meeting later, or that they had one, and this is what all the stuff that came out of it, after they'd done it, so. There's the other one with the rearranging the production floor overnight. There was, third shift crew, one of the crews on the third shift had a slow night, and they were just looking at, they were like, oh, we never use that machine. That's always in the way. Maybe we should move that into the warehouse, and then, oh, we could take this other machine that's over here. That would make much more sense for it to be over there. And so they started just like, they started like thinking about all this stuff, and they're like, oh, that'd be really cool. And then somebody's like, yeah, we should just do it. So they, they got the warehouse guys and they got the maintenance guys, and they said, look, this is what we think. We think we should, do these things, move these machines around and everything. So I came in at like 6 o'clock in the morning, and they're like really excited, so like, come on up, come see what we did. So, I got on the production floor, and they'd moved all this stuff around, and they'd rewired things and done all this stuff, and it was just, so much better. And they got paint, they painted the walls, they cleaned stuff, they, like, you have as you move your refrigerator, and it was like, oh shit, all this junk on the floor, right? So the place was spotless, everything was clean and neat and all good. And it made a lot of sense. In a lot of companies, upper management would absolutely be having complete flip out. If they walked in and found that some people on the third shift moved some equipment around without, like, signatures and forms filled out and a study and, engineering, study or all this kind of stuff, So, like, but if you put our company against, another company that was operating more of the hierarchical structure kind of thing, they'd be like, they'd stand no chance. We'd just, like, blowing them away like they were standing still, because they were just stuck in the environment. Any questions, thoughts? See some smiles. Yeah.
What is number 3?
Yeah.
Oh, Energy Kaizen event?
Yeah.
So, so we were a manufacturing company. Have you ever heard of like lean manufacturing, that kind of thing? Okay. So, all right, so you are familiar with that. So basically the Energy Kaizen event was a lean event, but it was focused on saving energy. So for anybody who doesn't know, Kaizen event is basically a group of people for like a week or so will dive into something. Usually it's a production, manufacturing, improvement thing. And it may involve like rearranging equipment or doing something, changing procedures and that kind of thing. So a group of people studies stuff, figures out a better way to do it, and implements that. So what we were working on doing was doing an energy saving thing, because I just saw that there was lots of potential to save power, save electricity, and I was trying to lower our carbon footprint and everything. So I basically just said, hey, I want to do this Energy Kaizen event. Anybody's interested? We'll have a meeting in the boardroom, on this day, this time, or whatever. And people showed up, and we had, people from the maintenance department, which you would expect, and people from production. We had people from our analytical lab, who basically ran analytical equipment all day, who were like energy fanatics that I had no idea. So what we did was we hired, normally what most companies would do is you just hire like an outside expert to come in, they go around your facility and say, yeah, those light bulbs, those need to be changed, and this thermostat, blah, 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 whatever, that kind of thing, right? So the outside expert comes in, and then somebody quotes all that stuff, and then some outside people do it, right? So instead, what we did was we hired the outside person to come in and teach us how to do all that stuff. So, we had 500 horsepower steam boilers, we had 36 air conditioning units on the roof, we had lots of huge motors and things like all over the place, and lights and computers and all these other things using energy. And so what we did was they taught us how to measure and track all that stuff and find steam leaks and compressed air leaks in a huge air compressor, a 350 horsepower air compressor. And so they taught us how to do that stuff. We went out and did it, and then we came back, and we also involved one of our suppliers who supplied us electric motors and stuff. This woman, Nancy, came in and joined our team, and she created the spreadsheet and was, putting all the data in as everybody was bringing it to the room, and we basically worked out, what we could do, and then we started actually doing that stuff. And we got quite a lot of compensation from the utility company for doing it. So if you change your light bulbs out, they give you a little bit of money. If you change like 4 or 5 different things, it's they call it a comprehensive package. That you get like almost 50% of So we ended up with a brand new air compressor. We had $250,000 for that, and a whole bunch of other funding for the other things that we did. But the beauty of having our people do it was not only did they learn a lot and were like super engaged, and those people were really interested in those things, but also like later on, if some outside person just comes in and fixes all your air leaks, then 5 years later you get a whole pile of more air leaks. Nobody's doing anything about it. But if your crew does it, and they hear that and they go, oh, that's a $500 a year air leak right there. I can hear it. I know what that sounds like. So that's worth fixing. And the same thing, steam trap's not working or something like that. Yeah.
Sometimes you have employees who really want to do like the least possible amount of work, and especially like when you're doing people work from home, but it doesn't even have to be work from home. You can be like in an office, and still it's like you may have a lot and any given employee may have a lot already on their plate. You have a team, everyone's kind of jamming, and it's like, who wants to do more work for the same amount of money? And many times it's like, how can I kind of do less?
Tap
So,
the brakes or something.
and just like, so how do you, because you're working with, like, it sounds like, exact, so this is kind of an issue, especially if you're asking employees to step up and motivate them to, take on projects that are not necessarily like maybe in their annual job description.
Yes, definitely. Everybody's outside their job descriptions all the time.
Yeah, I see that a lot, especially now. I do that too. I have to take on jobs that were, I have to take up a management task because management was doing some
Wasn't doing it.
They had personal issues going on in their lives, so myself and the other team members, we had to take out, and we even got reprimanded for it. We got reprimanded for it, but we did it out of the goodness of our hearts.
And then it's funny that you can get in trouble for doing something like that. So what we were doing, so I wasn't making people do stuff, but I was saying, here's this thing, anybody who's interested, come do it, and so, and there's so many things going on all the time that you're constantly, like, there are things that people are interested in, and they'll just do it. And those are the people that I want working on that project anyway. I want them sort of self-selecting because that's their thing, and they really want to do that. And then that goes back to the intrinsic rewarding stuff. When you get to go to work and do the thing that you're really, really good at for the benefit of everybody in your group, that's like a really good day. So it's getting
So is
those
it a
opportunities.
hiring thing that you're kind of
So
saying, or is
it's-
it like, how do you get to that, over that person, get through to those people so they're not just trying to minimize the amount of work that they have to do in any given day?
So what it is, the secret is, in my mind, the secret is just starting someplace small. So usually within the group, like you mentioned, like you just stepped up and did some stuff that needed doing. That wasn't happening, right? You and a couple other people are just like, this isn't happening, let's just do it, right? Because it's driving us nuts. So there will be groups like that in companies, and the thing is to because what you're trying to do is you want to shift the entire company culture. But you can't do it like, step by step, everybody does one thing, then everybody does another thing, that stuff doesn't work. But what you can do is you can find those places where it's already clicking or people want to do that stuff and then really let them go because they want to do it anyway. And then what happens is other groups see that and go, huh, what's happening over there? Why are those people getting to do all that stuff? Like, oh, they're getting to do all that stuff. So, and there's some other things that they would like to get to be able to do too. And like, oh, well, if you want to do that, that's fine too. So the next thing you know, you've got people just trying to do the same thing everywhere in the whole company, because each individual part of the company's got its own little personality. So like the accounting team is not the same as the marketing group, right? The marketing group are much more like, hey, wow, look at this cool stuff. Let's, and the accounting team is like, we have to do this way. And, so they just have different personalities. And maybe the accounting group is perfectly happy with the hierarchical structure they have, and the marketing group is like, yeah, we're just, very, very little hierarchy, and they're just doing the thing. And that's perfectly fine. That's totally appropriate.
So it sounds like what you're saying is that running like little small experiments kind of brings energy into the system.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it brings that energy into the whole thing. People start to see stuff, and it just starts to change things. And there's people. We started doing some stuff. We started implementing things in our maintenance department. So, like the start of shift meeting example. People don't mind me talking about that. That was an example. So typical company thing, especially manufacturing company, there's a whole bunch of stuff that needs to get done, right? And the supervisor comes in and says, all right, today, you're, Justin, right? So Justin, you're running machine number 3. I need 5 batches out by, 2 o'clock, and then you got to clean it up and be ready and hand it over to the next shift or whatever. And Dwayne, I need you to run machine number 4, I expect blah, 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 right? So the supervisor's telling everybody what to do. That's the start of shift meeting, right? And the same thing would be in the maintenance department, engineering guy or whatever would be like, okay, mechanic, this is what you need to work on today, and that kind of thing. Instead, again, bringing, autonomy is key to, this intrinsic reward stuff. So instead, I said, what if we didn't do that? What if instead people came in, what if people decided what machine they wanted to run, who they were going to run it with, right? And then they came in, and went out, because there was a significant amount of time overlap between the shifts. So they go out to, so Justin's running machine number 3, and what's your name? Nursel. So Justin and Nursel are running machine number 3. They go out and talk to the people who are running machine number 3 now, find out where they're at, what's going on. They come back to the group. Everybody else has done that same thing. We come back, and instead of the supervisor telling everybody what to do, you guys basically just say, okay, we're running machine number 3. We're on batch number 4 now. We think, we can be on, whatever, how much you're going to get done, and that kind of thing. And if there's any issues, you can say, like, look, the raw material is looking kind of, lumpy. It's, and the color is not exactly right. Maybe we need to have somebody from QA come down and take a look at that kind of thing. So now, as the supervisor, now my job is to become a coach. And what's called a scrum master in an agile system, and I'm basically now removing obstacles. So now it's my job to go get the QA person to get them down to look at your stuff, right? And my job to talk to the warehouse and make sure that you don't run out of product at 11 o'clock and that kind of thing. So it just changes the entire dynamics, and everybody is. And so in the maintenance department, I had one guy in particular, and he was just like, I don't want to do this. Just tell me what you want me to do. I'm like, I'm not telling you what I want you to do. So what would happen is, and there were different groups running different kinds of equipment, and they would have those meetings, and different maintenance people would be in that group. So then, if you guys had a problem with your machine, it was making a funny noise, then the maintenance person would hear that and be like, okay, I'll come out and I'll listen to that with you, and we'll see if we can figure it out. And if you're cleaning the machine anyway at about 1 o'clock, maybe I can change the part and fix the thing, or doing whatever. But the maintenance guys would just come in, and we just do the same thing, stand in a circle, go around the room, and what are the issues today? Well, we have a problem on machine number 3, we have this thing going on here, that thing there, and there's this project we're working on, and we just kind of go around the group and talk about what the issues are, and then we just go around, okay, so what's everybody doing today? and everybody would just say what it was they were gonna do, and I never once had to assign anybody anything. Everybody always just, just saw what needed doing, they knew what they were good at, and they would just go and do it. And then what was really good, after a little while, was that people who really actually didn't have a clue about something would just like volunteer to like go like, I don't know, I've never worked in a packaging machine before, but I feel like I want to give it a shot, and so I'm going to go out and take a look at that. And somebody else who was good at that would be like, so when you go there, I would look at this and this first, and if it's not that, I would check that, and then if you want my help, come find me, and I'll come do this thing, and help you out with it. So people are learning now and teaching each other stuff, and it's just this fluid environment and the camaraderie, because before that, people would be like holding back information because they're the expert on the thing. And now all of a sudden they're like, oh, I'll teach you how to do this, and I'll show you how that works, that kind of thing. So it's just the whole thing is
So
changing.
is this a model that you use for your company?
Yeah, this is what we were
So
doing.
who put this thing together? How many people besides you?
All this stuff,
Yeah.
this is just me.
That's you.
Yeah, over the years, trying out stuff, implementing things, read a lot of books, kept playing around with stuff. Yeah.
So on the Agile Scrum, does that mean like someone is capable and Scrum is someone that's just not healthy enough to get the job done?
No, yeah, so Agile and Scrum are a system that's used in like software engineering design. And again, it's a system that allows for a lot of autonomy. So the typical software development thing, you talk to the customer, find out what they wanted in their software, and then somebody goes back and develops all that. Takes them 6 months to a year, and they come back and say, here, customer, this is the thing we did for you. And the customer looks at it and go like, oh, I don't know, it doesn't really do, or everything's changed now, and now we're all using this instead of that, and now I need an app instead of, doing it this other way, and things are just moving, whatever. So the customer's not, getting what they now need. And that system's really slow. So there's a guy named Jeff Sutherland and another guy, whose name I don't remember right now, came up with this Agile system, which is very, very simply, it's a list of the things that the customer would like ranked in order of priority, and a team that looks at that list and figures out this is what we can do in a period of time called a sprint. So it might be a 2-week period of time. We think we can bite off this chunk of this thing. And at the end of that 2 weeks, they show the customer, this is what we've got so far. And the customer can say, yeah, that looks good, or no, that doesn't look good. And they proceed down the list like that. And they pick up a lot of speed because they get good at working with each other on this thing and working down a list. And sometimes they get halfway down a list and the customer's like, you know what, this is fabulous, this is the way it is. I don't really need the rest of this stuff. And then they can go on to working on another project for a different customer instead. But the whole thing works really well because there's essentially a team that's working on this stuff, but the team members decide what they're going to do this week, how much they're going to do, how much they think they can get done, and who they're working with, and how they're going to go about doing it, that sort of things, as opposed to the more hierarchical system that they used to have for writing software, which almost nobody ever does anymore because this looks so much better.
What if there's someone that gives them like A, B, C, or D, and then the whole team just takes it from there? That kind of a little similar.
Yeah, you mean like the things that the customer wants? You mean or
Yeah, with the team, with the customers, team member has to do like the rest of the work, or all the work. Like for example, if there's a boss and they say to this person, they give them a little bit of things, A, B, C, or D.
yeah.
Then they do E, B, Z themselves. Is that kind of something similar, or is that?
Well, in the Agile system, there's no boss. It's just a team. It's a flat structure. And then at the end of the sprint, not only will they show the customer what they've done, but they'll also have a team retrospective to say, okay, what went well, what didn't go so well, what things do we need to work on or improve, and that kind of thing. And the team members will help each other out and coach each other. Because somebody may be weak at something, but everybody else is just that's just something that needs to work on together. Did you want to add anything to that? Because I know you know a lot about that.
Yeah, Scrum is a kind of Agile. Agile is kind of a bigger umbrella term, and Scrum is a particular kind. But there's lots of different kinds.
So we're at 5 minutes after 8. I'm happy to keep going, but
Okay, I have a question.
mindful of time. Yeah.
So this is,
Yeah.
this is a management style of your own organization, or do you actually sell this to?
I'm here.
So it's what we did, but I'm perfectly happy to teach other people or show them, or, you know, I wrote the book so they could read that and figure it out, but I'm perfectly happy to coach
You have
people.
published a book?
Yep, that's my book right back there, and you're everybody's welcome to have a copy. And if you know somebody else who you think would really, really like this stuff, grab extra copies.
So where do you domicile your business? You're in Connecticut?
Yeah, so I live here in Ridgefield.
You live in?
Yeah.
And yes, he does have a
That's why I didn't have
business.
that Ridgefield look, I got you from New Canaan.
Oh, yeah.
I'm close, I'm
Yeah,
close.
yeah, you're close.
Okay.
Are you generally doing consulting work now?
Yeah.
Gavin Watson and Associates.
Yeah. And some consulting here in Connecticut, some up in Maine. I spend my summers up in Maine, so there's run across a bunch of companies up there.
Can I ask you again, you mentioned something about Blueprint?
Yeah. So there's actually 2 books named Blueprint.
Okay.
So the one you're probably thinking of is the one by Robert Plomin. That's the one there. He's saying that you know, basically our personalities are highly heritable. So it's Blueprint by Robert Plomin. He's got some good YouTube videos. So basically what he's saying is that about 50% of our personality is baked into us by our DNA. And then what happens is over time, say like if I'm an introverted person, I'm not going to be at the party, you know, on Friday night at the college campus, right? But I might be wandering around the college arboretum, you know, Saturday morning, you know, enjoying nature or something like that. So, you know, so we self-select to be parts of groups and hang out with other people and do things that match our personalities, and so we become more and more that person.
So do you draw more altruistic people to your lectures?
Probably, yeah. Everybody's self-selecting to show up here or something, yeah.
Okay.
Can you tell us a little bit about that conscious business?
Conscious capitalism or conscious business? Yeah. So there's a group called Conscious Capitalism, and I'm the chair of the Connecticut chapter of Conscious Capitalism right now. We're actually rebranding it. It's going to be the Conscious Business Collaborative. Essentially, Conscious Capitalism was founded by Raj Sisodia and John Mackey. John Mackey was one of the founders of Whole Foods, and Raj Sisodia is a teacher at Babson College. And what they wrote a book called Conscious Capitalism, and there are 4 principles to it. There's a conscious culture, which, you know, is the culture within the company. So I would say that's an altruistic culture. So you're building an altruistic culture within your company, right? You have stakeholder, they call it stakeholder orientation, and what that really is an altruistic ecosystem in which your company resides. So this concept is fractal. So you know, if you have the altruistic ecosystem within your company, then you also want to have is have your company reside in an ecosystem where your customers, your suppliers, the community that the company's in, all of that is all altruistically behaving towards each other, because that group will also outcompete than any other group that doesn't have that sort of, you know, where you have the adversarial behavior between the company and the suppliers and the customers and that kind of thing. So, and higher purpose is one of the other pillars. So all businesses and groups should know what their, know that they're a group and know what their purpose is, have a higher purpose beyond making money. So, and conscious leadership is the last of the 4 pillars. So conscious leadership, conscious culture, and stakeholder orientation and higher purpose are the 4 pillars of conscious capitalism.
I'm a chemistry teacher.
Okay.
I also teach environmental science.
Yeah.
I came here to draw some inspiration, some hope that I can give my teenagers, because capitalism in
Yeah.
their eyes right now
It's not the way to go.
is
Yeah,
killing the environment.
Right,
and,
right,
And they're,
right.
they're so depressed, and
Yeah.
I need good stories.
right, yeah, yeah. Well, you know, we are, I think, on this moment where the old system is dying and it doesn't really know it's dying yet. And the new system, you know, the new paradigm is coming into being, but it's not fully formed yet. Nobody really knows, you know, so I'm basically cobbling together a bunch of different things, and I think that this system makes a lot of sense. And I think that, you know, because one of the problems before, when I was in our company and I was talking to some manager or something, and they'd be like, oh, Gavin, you know, it's a whole bunch of peace, love, and granola stuff, you know, that you're spewing, and you know, it's not going to work in a business environment. And, you know, it wasn't until I ran across, you know, that quote from David Sloan Wilson, you know, selfishness beats altruism in groups, but altruistic groups beat selfish groups. And as soon as, like, you get that, it's like, duh. You know, it's like, that is so obvious. It's like, oh, okay, so that's why that whole other system is just completely rubbish, you know, and if you really then now start to create, you know, an altruistic system within your business and you know, valuing individuals and, you know, minimal hierarchy and all those kinds of things, and creating lots of autonomy within a group, that group's just gonna so totally outperform, you know, any of the other groups that's competing.
Excuse me, so is this software that you've written as well?
No,
So you're not a software engineer?
no, I'm not a software engineer.
Okay.
Manufacturing.
Okay, so I got a couple questions for you, and I'm gonna leave. Stuff for you to sleep on.
Okay,
Okay, so I'm in the automobile business,
okay,
okay? And this sounds stupid, but it's really the way I feel. I've been in the car business 35 years,
mm,
and the dumbest, most arrogant people are men in this business,
okay,
okay?
yeah,
There's a strike going on now,
yeah,
UAW,
yeah,
okay? They were asking for some outrageous package, they want like a 45% increase,
yeah,
okay? Overall, you know, with benefits and everything.
yeah,
So, you talk about an old system,
mm,
okay? To me, there's nothing more archaic than
Yes.
United Auto Workers.
yeah,
But this is too much, lollipop for them, they can never absorb this.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
I tell you what, you have any children?
yes,
How old are
26 and
they? Okay,
30,
they're older than,
yeah,
but anyone that has a baby,
mm,
toddler,
yeah,
okay, they'll grow up to get their license at 18 and things will still be the same in the car business.
yeah,
And that's pretty sad,
yeah,
because the problem with that is, you want to get behind the wheel, and so do I,
yeah,
okay? And we're gonna pay that 45%.
yeah,
Which has nothing to do, by the way, with the gas pump, the
mm,
grocery store, okay?
right,
This is already in the works, so
yeah,
that when this thing is settled, and before this, really pushing very hard to get it settled.
yeah,
But it's just gonna be a total disaster, people
Yeah.
can't afford to drive a car now.
yeah,
So organizationally speaking,
Yeah.
is what I'm driving at here.
yeah,
If it was possible to break up the union,
Yeah.
it's almost impossible.
Yeah.
Like the baseball players union, it's almost impossible. So if that was, again, this is my theory, my
Sure, yeah,
dream.
yeah.
If you can bust it and crack it, okay, and come in with some real thinkers,
yeah,
okay, where there is a sense of camaraderie,
yeah,
okay, so I'm very into Simon Sinek,
yeah,
I'm very into Seth Godin, I love these
okay,
guys,
yeah,
okay? So I sense a little piece of everything,
yeah,
okay, from you, without, you know, elaborating any more than that, but it has to change, and it's not gonna change, but it has to,
yeah,
okay?
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
think as
Well-
consumers, okay, we are in a bad position, if you know what I'm saying.
yeah. Well, there's definitely, a lot of adversarial stuff going
Yeah.
on between all of that, which
Oh,
is
yeah.
not helping, and they
Right.
definitely don't have an altruistic system.
Right.
And, you know,
Because
I would,
the
there,
unions are the best example of mismanagement.
yeah,
Because there was a time, Gavin,
Yeah.
probably 45 years, that General Motors was the #1 corporation in the world,
mm,
right? They pretty much did anything they wanted to do, they gave away everything. But, when they pulled back, and then all of a sudden, you know, they formed the United Auto Workers, and it all changed. So
Mm.
now, your employer, okay, is the enemy.
yeah,
Your employee
yeah,
is your adversary.
right,
Okay, So you have this happening instead of this.
Right, right,
Okay? How could you shake hands when you're like this?
right.
You can't do it, it's
Yeah.
impossible.
Yeah, yeah.
So I bleed for that, it bothers me all the time.
Yeah, yeah.
But I would love to
And
see
there's-
something.
Yes, yeah, no, it would be great, and there are,
You
you
understand
know,
my point?
there's
what I'm
stuff
saying?
on, yes, no, I understand what you're saying, and you know the car industry way better than I do, but, you know, I would just say that, like, I don't know, maybe it's this, like, takes two to tango kind of thing, but
Yeah.
there's, you know, the management has probably missed a slew of opportunities where they could have done things better, and not end up in the, you know, in the state that
Or,
they're
you
in
know,
now, too.
unfortunately, instead of need, it's greed.
Yeah,
You know, they
Yeah,
don't satisfy
yeah,
people's
yeah.
needs.
One of our other board members, when we were doing a check-in question the other day in the Conscious Capitalism group, and one of them said, you know, because I said, you know, what is the biggest problem in the world? One of them just said, greed. It's like, yeah, that's
Right,
pretty
right.
straightforward,
Yeah,
pretty much, you
yeah.
know, nailing it,
The
so.
oil companies are
But-
proving that.
Yeah.
Greed.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly, they're
about-
willing to burn down the
Oh, everything
planet
starts at the top.
and our political
Everything
systems
starts
and
at the
everything,
top.
just to keep going.
How you get those companies to be altruistic?
Yeah, yeah,
It's
well.
like, you know, changing religions.
Yeah, yeah. Well, there are, you know, at some point, there will be some, you know, smaller, faster, you know, more altruistic group will show up. And when it does, you know, it'll clean their clock. They'll just be toast. So,
Yeah.
you know, as these kinds of ideas, I think, you know, emerge, it won't necessarily emerge in the car industry right away, but these ideas will emerge. It'll be clear that these kinds of companies outperform the other ones. And once people caught onto that, somebody, you know, someplace will start to implement that even in the car industry.
Right.
And then the other ones will be like,
Oh,
oh my God.
the cars are at the bottom of the list.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That'd be the last of the Medivans
Yeah.
to catch on. So anyway, I have to go.
Yeah. Well,
Thank
thank
you
you all
everyone
for
for
coming.
coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.